Hello, my most amazing artist. How are you today? It's your art teacher, Ms. Clark, and I hope you guys said that you're ready to create because today we're going to be learning about architecture. Architecture is the type of art when somebody plans and designs and builds a building or a house, while an architect is the person who does that planning, building, and designing. So today, you guys are going to get to become architects as you design your very own dream house. But before we get started, we're going to read a quick book called The Big Orange Spot to help us get some ideas of how we can design this dream house and become our very own architects. So the story is called The Big Orange Spot by Daniel Pinkwater. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everyone else on Mr. Plumbean's street. This is a neat street, they would say. Then one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbean's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dropped the can. No one knows why. Right over Mr. Plumbean's house. It made a big orange spot on Mr. Plumbean's house. Oh no, too bad, everyone said. Mr. Plumbean will have to paint his house again. I suppose I will, said Mr. Plumbean, but he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange spot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange spot. Someone said, Mr. Plumbean, we wish you'd get around to painting your house. Okay, said Mr. Plumbean. He got some blue paint, some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange spot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out to see their houses. Their homes were all the same. But Mr. Plumbean's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. Look at that house. There was the big orange spot, and there were little orange spots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovelers. The people said, Plumbean has popped his cork, has flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper. They went away muttering. That day, Mr. Plumbean bought carpenter tools. That night, he built a tower on top of his roof, and he painted a clock on the tower. Ooh, let's see this. Look, he's got that tower he built. The next day, the people said, Plumbean has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hasser. They decided they would pretend not to notice. That very night, Mr. Plumbean got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, boabas, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipanis. In the morning, he bought a hammock and an alligator. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbean swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator laying in the grass. Mr. Plumbean was drinking lemonade. Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a neat street. Plumbean, what have you done to your house? The people shouted. My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be. And it looks like all my dreams, Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. Tell him that we liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street. Actually, look at that. Look at his pet alligator. The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat under the palm tree, drinking lemonade and talking all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber, a rope, a nail, and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbean. What that guy did? He went and changed his own house. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man, who had always loved ships. "He's just like Plumbean," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his blaffer, and knots in his noodle." Then, one by one, they all went to see Mr. Plumbean. Late at night, they would sit under the palm trees, drink lemonade, and talk about their dreams. Whenever anyone visited Mr. Plumbean's house, the very next day, that person would set about changing their own house to fit to his dreams. Look at all these cool houses. Got a castle, got another one over here. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams." All right, guys, and that is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed the book today. If you guys go down, there are going to be 2 activity options. The first one will be drawing your very own dream house. The second one will be making a 3D building for your dream house. So go ahead and check out those links below and decide which one you want to do.